Gentlemen, welcome back to this Christmas. She's a coming. Milwaukee M12 Micro Mini Thumper, 220 foot-pounds of nut-busting torque. Doesn't take me nearly that much. As witnessed by the countenance of the outwards being inwards, the empire of dirt gnomes have not been able to get through the rock slides in order to do their appointed Christmasly rounds. What do you call a psychic gnome what broke out of prison? A small medium at large. Won't? Double your bumblefuckery, double your pleasure. Look at this scientitious abortion with the things and the gewgaws and so forth. A lot of fellas saying this wouldn't work because it wasn't full of oil and, just jumping up and down, couldn't figure out to shit or wind his watch. Well, partner, you sandbag long enough and it just sort of happens. What I done is I pressurized it myself. Filled it right full of the chooch juice. Commissioned good and proper, scientific-wise. While I'm wrapping this up in Primacord to free myself up a clean spot, I make a concerted effort here not to get too tongue-tangulated by the details. We'll just go over the quick, ugly bits in here. You might say a college try, or we all know that stuffs up the drains. And the waffle stomp don't work so good for... Anyway, boys will be boys. Time. Yeah, that's water. Got a smell. No, that's me. The red is getting more and more fadey. You see how that orange is? Look at the color of that. Totally different kind of a red. If you ever made a cake or watched your Better Three Carters make a red velvet cake or a Marshall cake from that show what the kids can't get enough of, Paw Patrol. My buddy suggested we become bazillionaires by doing a knockoff Papa Troll. Sounds the same. The grandparents are on there buying Paw Patrol toys. Huh? I bet you, you look hard enough, you can find some Papa Troll toys. In any case, it's expensive as shit to get really, really red things. It takes a lot of dye. And you can see they're knocking off the dye a little bit. A little bit sticky icky. Just going through the other side then. A couple of little polish marks here on the ejector pins. Some gnarly bits on that mold there. I had a problem up in here. TPS, SEBs, and glass fiber reinforced. The electromechanical section of this here tool starts out with the angered up pixies from the battery going into the leads, positive and neg. All elastic together through a switch, a turning switch, which would tell the confuser which direction you want to turn, because it is a brushless motor. This is interesting. A membrane switch monolithically affixed to the PCB board. And this has a hell of a lot of sensors going to it. Okay, so wires rather. So some of them for the battery indicator, and rather than being multiplexed, that is having fewer wires and doing it the control another way, it's direct. Well, that doesn't make sense. There's a tactile switch embedded. Let's have a closer look at that. That's interesting. Something interesting going on this board. If you look at it, it's got a lot of layers in there. It's just got a momentary tactile membrane switch. So it's not doing something. There's got to be some brain boxery on here. don't see why you would have so many wires going to it. I'm conflummoxed. I really don't see why you would have so many wires in there. Just a tactile switch and the power indicator LEDs. 6 wires, right? 7 wires. And there's 4, probably 10 on there. Yeah. Going into the control board, that's some MOSFETs with a little bit of heat sinking here, feeding into the brushless motor. Oh. I've got a little grounding strap here, what for stray pixies to get back into the battery. Maybe it's that one. No, not that one. Seems as though, it wouldn't surprise me in the least if the engineers over at TTI, parent company, well, the owners of Milwaukee, Ryobi, Rigid, AEG, took a page out of Duclaw's book. They're cheating. They say it's a 1/2-inch head, but the 1/2-inch head got the same size as the 3/8 head. Riddle me that. You would think that the 3/8 head would be smaller, what for fitting in tighter spots. Or, more to the point of our story, the 1/2-inch head would be more beefier. Not to worry, we got 5 of those. We can stand to lose a couple. Holy Schlitz. Light. Look at that. Ha! That's a hell of a bull wheel there. Look at the size of that cork stuffer. It's always nice to see when we take apart everything's super tight. Good fitment. Lets us know we're going to have a hell of a time trying to get it back together. Springing all over This partner, this is fucking cool. We haven't seen a mechanism like this. We've seen bits and bobs of various, but this is all fabric cobbled together in a new embodiment. We got a 90-degree drive, so the pinion drives in there, and there's a gear reduction. It drives on that at a 90 degree. Check that out, check that out. So that is not a planetary gear set, just a spur gear. Drives on a bevel. And then that drives this other pinion into another reduction. Not a heavy reduction though. And then it's got a mechanism like a 1/4-inch drive impact driver. It doesn't have the floppy hammers, what you would see on a typical pneumatic gun, or even the flat. There's a IR that I took apart a while ago. And it's got hammers in that same space. And instead of a hammer, what we have is a big anvil, and then big hammer and big anvils, but it works on the same mechanism as an impact driver, where it's spinning with things and then it pops up and over against the spring force. This moves back up and over these dogs and then hammers every time it spins around. A little bit different than what I was expecting. Nice components in there, lots of metal, nice grinds. And you see the dogs, very low profile dogs as well. That's a critical. When you're buying one of these low profile tools, of course, you're paying for the low pro. You kind of want to get low pro. Now we can see an interesting artifact of the design. It's really well put together. It fits all nicely, but this is either a rookie mistake or by purpose, or maybe just an oversight. You have an automotive tool or a tool what's using in a dirty environment. So you have conductive dust, and you have a membrane switch that, granted, has a bit of a brow ridge. At the same time, you're relying on a thin piece of plastic to keep the conductive dust out of that switch, that tactile switch. If this were A FAP-off tool, I would expect to get lots of warranties in the tool truck on this tactile switch. Once that goes away, we've all seen these tactile switches at gas pumps or anything where there's getting touched a lot. Well, that's the thing. Maybe they don't get touched a lot. Maybe you kind of set it and forget it. You set her at max chooch and that's it. So that might be a red herring on my part, but it would be interesting if that is planned obsolescence, where after a few years this naturally degrades and craps out, and you kind of get the feeling where you want another one anyway, because sometimes the switch works, sometimes it doesn't. If I were king shit of Turd Island, I would not build it that way. However, being a mere Sir Bumblefuck of the Empire of Dirt, I have no say in the matter. This went together real easy, which leads me to believe I fixed it till it's fucked. Spit roast half a turn, let the smoke out. Wow, that runs fast, eh? You got to stop in order to. How do you know which one you're on? You use the force. That's an interesting startup routine. Comes up to speed, overshoots, comes down, and then goes back up. I'll give her a wee kiss, warm it up, see what we get. And then we'll go on to the commissioning step. Forward biased. It's weaker in reverse, seems like. Not budging her. Maybe we need a bigger battery. Not to worry, kind of folks. If this don't work, I got some other tricks up my sleeve. And disseminated at the 33rd Dan of the Jiu-Jitsu Knights Templar Mechanical, a black hole of unholy cussing is only witnessed by a chainsaw museum. It's my heritage. Yeah, the bigger battery did her. Let's see with the bigger battery now. Come on, you piece of shit. Why would that stop? Why? That's the stupidest fucking thing ever. You kind of want it to hammer for a bit longer than just 2 strokes. According to your wife, anyway. We got yon battery on yon charger. And what we'll do, I'll show you what I had the dial indicator on here, what for checking the stretch of the bolt to coincide that with a bolt torque. Of course, this measures clamping because torque is dependent on the friction of the threads. If you got a buggered up thread, it's going to take more torque. You're not going to have as much clamping. This is critical that we get the clamping. Say you're building a bridge. You don't give a fuck about the torque. What you care about, or you're building an engine, the head, you don't care about the torque. You care about the clamping load. This is what this measures. So indirectly with this machine, we are measuring torque, but what we're actually measuring is clamping load. We assume that the coefficient of friction is going to be the same because the threads have been cleaned up and we have some of, well, that which will go unnamed, black moly, since the white couch incident of '06. But just to preload it here, you can tell we're preloaded and I'm starting to tweak it up. That's an 1.5 inch wrench, open-ended, and just with not much pressure at all, I'm already way over what that little gun will put out. Okay, I'm gonna back it off, and just to make sure that we're not stroked out, remember this is a hydraulic cylinder. Now, hydraulics, in everyday parlance, is an incompressible fluid. However, all of the components in here are all springs, the hose, everything. So we want to make sure that the flux of the tuck is equivalent to the heat of the meat. As well as the fleet of the beat. So we're bottomed out there, and I can go right up on the inner pack and put that under a nice load, which is what it's supposed to be set at. Just about 1 inch bolt, goes right to there. I'll try and loosen that off. It's already loose because we're bottomed right out. So now that we're bottomed right out, I can put some clamping load on that. And now we know we have taken all the slop out of the system. So you can put your pitchforks away. That cylinder is as full as it's ever going to get. Any kind of instrument, specifically mechanical, and though this is electronical, it's actually mechanical because it's got a Wheatstone bridge on there. And as the pressure increases, the deflection of that Wheatstone bridge causes a very high and rapid change in resistance. All measured out through here. So what we're going to do is run the manual torque wrench up to 50 pounds, measure it up to 100 pounds, measure the pressure. 123 at 50 pounds. What we want to see is some linearity, and at the bottom edge of the scale, it's not going to be very linear, but as we move up, it'll get more and more close to a straight line rather than a dog's dingus. There, we're at 100. We're getting pretty straight liney. Of course, for straight line, it's between 2 points. Okay, we got to get 3 points. Little math nerd joke there. Fnar, fnar. 150 foot-pounds. It is dropping down a little bit. I would say that's a fail. Mind you, this is a brand new, well, about a year old Proto 6016C. Hasn't been calibrated since new. So your mileage may vary. I trust that. You might not. The fuel brushless M12 half-inch drive will not do it. In the parlance of our day, I'm going to publicly disclose a novel invention of my own devising. You notice impact extensions are invariably just an extension, pun intended, of previous generations of tools. Extensions for ratchets, but they're not the same thing. So why do they look the same and why do they have different functionality? What I want is a little extra chooch. So I made this heavy hitter. It's got the square drive on the one side, square drive on t'other, but it's got a wing, a magical wing. Let's see how much extra torque we get out of this thing. Of course, it's ugly. It's a proof of concept. This will be, we'll make this real pretty, super skookum out of a decent steel. This is just mild steel now, A36 44W for those metric types. Okay, so we're at 300 now. So what would that be? About 100 foot-pounds of torque? Something like that. Right around there. Let's see if we can. And I fucked up on the previous one. I think I was hitting low. I did realize, however, why there's so many wires to this board. It's because it's lighted. You can barely see that faint glow of the pale blue moon. If you'd frame, you fuck. It's on the 3 there. Let's see how much more torque we can get out of this with the Make It Happenator. Tappy tap tap. So 40% more torque. But wait, there's more. Oh, Big Clive wanted to know what this spiral was for. That's precisely for hydraulic spikes. It works as an accumulator. You see that in there? It's got a little whoop-de-woo. And it's mounted on a springen. So we got just about, well, I would say we got twice the amount of torque out of this by banging on it like an ape. But at the same time, you want to get something off, and she ain't coming. It'd be nice to have something with a little purchase. You could put a wrench on, give her a little extra tweak, or just reef on the fucking thing. You know how it goes. Any little advantage is worth it. As far as this thing, I mean, it's sort of works. It doesn't have oodles and oodles of torque because of the mechanism. It just doesn't have real heavy hitting hammers. So, yeah, kind of a special use tool, and it's so heavy in the head. I don't think you'd be using it all that often. However, it is nice to get in there with an impact and not have the torque reaction of an air ratchet or a powered ratchet that jams your, Thanks for watching. Keep your dick in a vise. Yeah, tell me what you think about that stupid little idea. Keep your dick in a vise.